Biology chapter 17 theory video 5. Now we are going to discuss about different types of natural selection. Now when natural selection keeps things the way they are, that is called stabilizing selection. Now for example, if you take the agouti rabbits, that is the brown rabbits, they are the best adapted rabbits for to survive predation. So as a result, the agouti allele will remain as the most common coat color until something happens. That means if there is a change, then of course that will affect the survival of, if something happens for the something that takes away that advantage, then there will be a different form of natural selection taking place. However, if this same constant conditions continue, then it will continue, and that is called stabilizing selection. So that is the natural selection that tends to keep allele frequencies relatively constant over many generations. Now if some environmental factor or if a new environmental factor or a new allele appears, then the natural selection will cause the frequencies to the allele frequencies to change over the successive generations. This would be known as directional selection. So directional selection is the natural selection that causes a gradual change in allele frequency over many generations. Now when you take these two, selection against very small animals, selection against very large animals, so this results in the middle body mass with body mass that is closer to the middle to be breed more, and their numbers to increase. So we will actually learn about this in detail when we discuss the remainder. Now in a population, if you take a characteristic such as body mass, there would be selection pressures that would act against the two extremes. That means very small or very large individuals are less likely to survive and reproduce, and those who are in the middle will have the advantage of survival and reproduction. So as a result, this results in the population with a narrow range of body size. So this variation that keeps the characteristics in the mean value is called the stabilizing selection. That means it remains constant throughout. Then in the C graph, what happens is some characteristic changes. So as a result, if the selection or the selection or the factor is against the very small animals, then what happens is the large animals will be favored. So it will act against the smaller animals, and as a result, what happens is the number of population will increase in the direction of the larger animals. As a result, we get directional selection. However, after some time, it will become the new natural order. As a result, later on it will become the stabilizing selection after some time. Then the D1 would show the result of selection that favors both large and small, but acts against those whose size is in the middle range. This will be known as disruptive selection. We will look at how disruptive selection takes place. Here what happens is, if the conditions favor both the extreme ends, that is the smaller and larger population but not the middle, then it will maintain different phenotypes. We call it polymorphism in a population. So disruptive selection is the natural selection that maintains relatively high frequencies of two different sets of alleles. Individuals with intermediate features and allele sets are not selected for. So, polymorphism is the continued existence of two or more different phenotypes in a species. I hope you understood. Let's write down a note on this. Usually, natural selection keeps things the way they are by keeping the allele frequencies relatively constant over many generations. Please draw this first one. This type of natural selection is known as stabilizing selection. Over generations, it will favor the characteristic which is best adapted and the number of species in the middle of the two extremes would increase. Please draw B chart. So as you can see, the width here and width here are different. This one has lesser width. Leave a line and write. If a new environment or if a new environment factor or a new allele were to appear, natural selection may cause allele frequencies to change over successive generations. This is called directional selection. Then draw this part C here. Underneath that, write down. As shown above, natural selection acts against very small animals. As large animals are more likely to survive. This is known as directional selection. Leave a line and write. In disruptive selection, when the conditions favor both extremes of a population, maintaining different phenotypes, that is polymorphism, that means the large and small. Please draw this. Underneath that, which resulting in the different phenotypes polymorphism to have distinctive advantage over organisms with the middle or the mean qualities. So now if we are to discuss about the directional selection leading to change in allele frequency, we actually see that the directional selection can happen when there is a selection pressure. That means, now we saw what selection pressure was earlier. So that means there is a selection pressure. That means there is a different activity, an abiotic or a biotic pressure that affects the survival of a certain organism. Then, or else, as a part of a mutation, a new allele would arise. So this would result in the directional selection. Now, if there is a, we have considered a hypothetical population of rabbits. If it becomes much colder and snow was to fall and cover the ground for much of the year, then if the rabbits can survive, if the the survivability of the rabbits would depend on the animals who can hide in the snow. So as a result, what happens is now the brown rabbits have lost their advantage, because the rabbits with white fur would be not easily seen. They are more likely to survive and reproduce, and as a result, white fur will be passed on to their, passed on to the next generation or their offspring, and they will become dominant over the brown rabbits. So as a result, the frequency of the allele for white coat would increase at the expense of agouti rabbits. That is, the brown rabbits will are going to be affected, not just because of the allele, but because their characteristics is not suitable, or fitness reduces in the agouti rabbits. So over many generations, almost all the rabbits will have white coat than agouti. So this is a directional change in the population. So as a result, the agouti rabbits will decrease, thereby reducing the agouti allele. So the white allele will increase. As a result, there would be increase in the number of white rabbits. So this resulted in this came by because of the selection pressure. The selection pressure was the fact that it became colder. So now if a mutation happens in an individual in the rabbit population, so these are random events, you need to understand that, and it is not going to be affected in the same way like the environment, overnight. So this will mutations are, usually mutations are harmful. So that means they are going to be less adapted to their environment. As a result, they might die off before it gets passed on. However, there are mutations which are neutral. They are not advantageous, not disadvantageous, and they will just lie within them, and they might die off. There are some occasions where the mutations can produce useful features. Now, in humans also there are conditions like that. Now, they have found out a certain person in some Scandinavian country was immune to AIDS. That is because of a genetic mutation that person has. So this could be an opportunity for humans to find a cure for that. So rabbits that would have this, if there is a mutation that would that has an effect on the coat color, that gives a better coat color than agouti, then that allele will have a selective advantage, and that way those animals will be able to survive and reproduce than agouti rabbits. So that means that one is going to be, now for example, if you take the same conditions, it is white, the snow is white, and the white rabbits will survive. But when the summer comes, it becomes dry once again. Brown and green color, whatever the colors, will reappear. Then the white fellows will be more prominent. So then how are we going to get around this? So if there is an animal who can have a different color set, like gray or something of that sort, so if they develop this mutation, then they might reproduce better than the white and the brown, and will become the most prominent color, right? So that's what you need to understand about directional selection leading to change in allele frequency. Write down a note on this. Directional change can happen when there is a change in selection pressure. For example, when a climatic condition changes, an organism who has an selective advantage are likely to survive and reproduce, and would result in being the most common organism. Also, leave a line and write, also, directional selection leading to change in allele frequency can be a result of mutation as well. If a mutation results in an advantage of characteristic, organism containing that allele is likely to survive and become more common in the population. Now, for an example for this condition, we can take, this is not good for human beings, but we can take this as a natural selection order, that is the antibiotic resistance in bacteria. Now, a lot of people take antibiotics without a doctor's prescription. That is wrong, because when we develop resistance, the entire human population will lose that ability to destroy bacteria by using the antibiotics. So then we will have to develop more drugs. Now, when a pathogenic bacteria enters our body, we can drink antibiotics and destroy them. So these antibiotics are chemicals that are produced by living organisms that inhibit or kill bacteria, but they don't harm human tissue. Now, when someone takes antibiotic penicillin to treat a bacterial infection, the bacteria that are going to be sensitive to penicillin will die. So that means usually the entire population of the pathogenic bacteria will die, because this is targeting that. Now, if there is a bacteria with an allele that gives resistance to penicillin, that arises as a result of random mutation. So now we give them opportunity. If these bacteria are exposed to this virus, exposed to penicillin, we give them the opportunity. If we give them the opportunity to get exposed to penicillin too much, then what happens is they will start developing mutations, random mutations, that results in these bacteria having a resistance to penicillin. Now, when you take the bacterium Staphylococcus, some individual bacteria have allele that codes for the production of an enzyme penicillinase, which inactivates penicillin. So as a result, what happens is we cannot destroy them using penicillin. Now, bacteria have only a single loop of DNA. So each gene has only one copy. So as a result, the mutant allele is going to have an immediate effect on the phenotype of any bacterium. So as a result, they have a tremendous advantage. That means they can directly reproduce without being damaged by the penicillin drug. So the bacteria with this allele is going to be killed, but still the bacteria with the resistance to penicillin is going to survive. As a result, when they reproduce, they will actually one single bacterium which produced this mutation will produce 10,000 million bacteria within 24 hours. 10,000 million bacteria will be produced within 24 hours, and as a result, you will get Staphylococcus bacterium, which cannot be deactivated or destroyed by penicillin. So then the disease will continue to be in the body. Now these are different. So these kind of antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria are continuously appearing. So we use antibiotics to change the selection pressure on bacteria. So that means if there is a new strain, just like these new strains that we speak about in relation to COVID, we will have bacteria which are resistant to the antibiotics, and we will have to develop more antibiotics to act against these new resistant strains of bacteria. Write down a note on this. Antibiotic resistance in bacteria. When pathogenic bacteria develop resistance to antibiotics, it results in a directional selection. For example, Staphylococcus bacterium can be destroyed by penicillin. However, as a result of a random mutation, if Staphylococcus develops an allele that codes for the production of the enzyme penicillinase, which inactivates penicillin, this bacterium will be resistant to penicillin, and as a result, we will have to develop new antibiotics against the new resistant strains of bacteria. I hope you understood. If you did not understand, please let me know. If you understood, please do the question.